Okay, today is For Topic Tuesday. We're going to be talking about a resource, so a book or a podcast recommendation, a tool, a person in my network who I think you should know about, and then finally an issue affecting my industry, which is B2B podcasting. Our interview extraordinaire, Chad Franzen, is going to be interviewing me. I'll tell you more about what we're going to be talking about in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of the show. And every week we have on smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs. And if you check out the archives, we've got Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, lots of great episodes in there as well. But of course, today's episode is going to be a different topic. We're doing Topic Tuesday. And before we get into this interview, this episode is brought to you by Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do three things, which are the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. It's a three-legged stool. You need all three of those in order to be successful. And in that process, we also invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform podcast co-pilot. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to our website, rise25.com, or email us at support@rise25.com. All right. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Chad, and you can take the reins.
Okay, sounds good. As you mentioned, we got 4 topics that we're going to be discussing. The first one is a recent book or podcast that you have stumbled upon or read or listened to that's kind of caught your eye, caught your ear.
Yeah, so I'm probably the last person to discover this book. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear. I had James on my podcast a long time ago, about 15 years ago, so before he wrote his book. He was a blogger back then, and he did an amazing job of just becoming disciplined, implementing discipline into his life. And so he wrote Atomic Habits, which was inspired in part by The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which is a book that I read a number of years ago. Great book. And it's kind of designed to be, I guess, the practical guide that extends from that book, but it gives you some practical tools about how to implement discipline in your life. And one big thing that stuck with me was, I think the quote was something like, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And the point behind that was that it's not about setting like these big, ambitious goals. It's about having systems in place that will allow you to achieve your whatever you set out to do, and following those systems. And he gives all these like simple examples, like, if you want to run every morning, putting your shoes out so that your running shoes are right there, and maybe putting your other shoes somewhere else so that you'd have to walk across the house to get your other shoes. So, it's easier. I'll just put on my running shoes and then that makes you go running. So he gives like kind of examples like that. So it's a great book, Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah, that's good. Those are good ideas. The next one is a tool maybe that we use here at Rise25 that you've found to be valuable.
And so a tool we've been using for a number of years is ActiveCampaign. It is a lot of different things. It's an email marketing service. It's a CRM. It's a platform that you can use to message people, even with text messages and things like that. It's got a lot of automation built into it. In fact, it's such a robust tool that I just went to a 2-day training on it because we weren't doing enough with it. And I felt there was a lot more that we could do. So we're kind of putting it more on overdrive. But if you don't have a CRM, you should. If you don't have an email marketing service, you should. I just got back from a conference in Hawaii where I was talking with someone who was talking about putting out a book, and I said, well, okay, that's great. So how big's your email list? And they hadn't built an email list yet. So you should be doing that first before you build, before you write a book or something along those lines. And you can use a tool like ActiveCampaign to do that. And in fact, going back to James Clear, he had done that for years. Part of the reason that his book became a mega bestseller, and you can't walk past any airport gift shop without seeing his book there, is because he had done things in that order. He built an email list, then he wrote a book, then he published a book. And even before that, he put discipline in place. He put good habits in place. He started blogging, which then helped to build his email list. So ActiveCampaign, if you want to be a bestseller like James Clear, ActiveCampaign or some other email marketing tool is a good place to start.
Is there something that ActiveCampaign does that you can't believe you survived without it? Some things with Chat GPT now, like I don't think I could live. I don't think I could go back to not having it. Is there something that ActiveCampaign provides that where you're like, I can't believe we lived without it before we utilized it?
Yeah, just having one of the things you can do is you can build a very simple sequence to educate your market on what you do, whatever you do. If you're a CPA, if you're a lawyer, if you're, a digital agency or something like that, there are certain questions that you answer over and over and over again and that people are curious about. And, you can either spend your whole life repeating yourself, or you can take that content, put it into emails that are dripped out to people over time. And so anyone who goes to your website goes and they opt in. You got to create something that is, that they really want, a cheat sheet or a checklist or a chapter of a book or something like that. So then they download that, and in exchange, they give you their email address. And then, instead of that being the end of the line, that's just the beginning of a conversation that happens on autopilot for you for years to come. So each person that comes in, they get sent a series of emails. Email's still super effective. Everyone checks their email. And so they get a series of emails that educate them on the questions that they are most curious about, that they want to know from you. And so that's going to save you a lot of time by putting those systems in place. You save yourself time over years and years to come.
Okay, sounds good. Next topic. Someone in your network who has impacted you recently.
Yeah, so we just overlapped when I was at that conference in Hawaii, and it's Adi Klevit, who's a longtime friend and a client of ours. We helped her to launch the Systems Simplified podcast. Her company is Business Success Consulting Group, and I don't think I've probably introduced her to maybe over a dozen people, and I think every single one of them has hired her because she provides a service that people need, which is documenting their systems and processes. And so many people are not good at doing that. And so she comes in and she asks the right questions. She takes them through processes and she documents their stuff. And so we, in our company, I don't claim to be perfect or anything like that, but we have documented everything. There's probably very few things in our company that doesn't have a system for it. And that's critical to what we do. It's critical to making sure that what you do is consistent, predictable, that people know how to do it. If one person is overworked, then that whatever task can be handed to someone else, and that person can do it because they've got an SOP that shows them how to do it. And so it's such an important thing. And but there's a lot of companies that don't ever do that. They don't document their process. And if you don't, you need someone like AD who can step in, who can help you to do that. But I encourage people to also check out her podcast, because that's a great way to kind of learn about her and what she do and, how she does it.
Yeah, documentation is very important to us here at Rise25. Was that always the case? You and Jeremy came together, you're going to do B2B podcasts. Did you know that, okay, we need to document our systems like from day one, or did you learn it over time?
We definitely learned it over time, and initially we had a very rudimentary version of it. So we had a version that existed on Google Documents, and it was like a spreadsheet. Chad, I don't even know if you ever saw that, but we had a spreadsheet that had like these different documents listed. We thought it was efficient, but once we switched over to using Suite Process, which is the tool that we use now, it was like such a game changer. I remember one of the team members saying, "Thank you so much for switching over to this." I didn't think it was that big a deal, but then I realize now how invaluable it is. So yeah, I had some systems, but not many before Jeremy and I became business partners 10 years ago. For my previous business, I had some systems documented, but not as many as I should have. Now I realized like that was something that was really holding me back.
I think I interviewed an investor or a buyer, somebody who like a company who buys smaller companies and things like that. And I asked him, what are some of the most valuable parts of a business that you may be looking to buy? And one of them they listed was they need to have all their processes documented.
I mean, I've looked, we've been looking at acquiring other companies, and I would not consider buying a business that doesn't have all their systems documented, unless it's just a business that you're getting for a song. But if you're spending good money to buy a business, yeah, you absolutely need to have some kind of have their systems documented, because otherwise, then it's, where is it? How do you know how to do it? And it could be one person, it could be two or three people that are implementing things that are just exist up in their head. And, if that person disappears or whatever, then you don't, the business crumbles. So it's really critical.
Final topic, an issue in your industry. We kind of talked about this before we started recording, kind of having to do with what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, especially when it comes to content creation. These days we're rapidly accelerating towards a point where things that you see online, we won't know if they are real or fake. Is this a real person talking? Is this a real video of an actual person? And that's exciting, but it also means that the real human interactions that we have with someone are going to be even more important. If we don't know things that we see online are real or fake, then that means that human interactions are going to be far more important. And ultimately, that's what that's what B2B podcasting is about. It's about creating real, genuine human conversations, connections with someone, and building a relationship through that process. And so I think that it will be even more critical for you to break through all the noise, because we're already bombarded by a lot of incoming messages as it is. Business owners are, you have these automated messages that you get people that are bombarding you, people that are trying to sell to you, things like that. And as the volume of that increases, then people will just kind of tune out that noise. But they won't tune out genuine human connections, as long as it's genuine, as long as that you're having a conversation that matters. And that's really what B2B podcasting is all about. So I'm a big believer in that.
Sure. Can that kind of genuine human connection applied as content? Can that be valuable for SEO?
Yes, and that's a great question that I have asked a lot of people. Is SEO going to go away? Because you hear some people say that, like, oh, ChatGPT, people are going to, in the future, they're going to get all their information from a ChatGPT or Perplexity or a Claude or something like that. But I just heard from a past guest on a podcast that I conducted who told me that their team or someone was searching in ChatGPT, and the information that came up was based on the podcast episode that we'd done together. And so the thing is that these chatbots, these AI chatbots these LLMs are all being trained on information that's on the internet. So the content that you put out on the internet and SEO around that is going to be even more important, because it's going to inform all the different LLMs that are out there. So, yeah, I think that's a very important point, is that those who are not putting out content, who are just expecting their website to do all their heavy lifting, your website is basically a brochure on the internet. And how much we trust brochures. Like, someone hands you a brochure or something, you're like, okay, whatever, right? Like, do we even look at that? Barely. And so, you really need to engage in the conversation, which is through having a podcast and having great conversations with clients and referral partners.
Okay, good stuff. Good advice.
Yeah.
John, great to talk to you and great to learn this stuff from you again this month. Really appreciate it.
Always fun to do a 4-topic Tuesday. So thanks, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.